Good evening, everyone. And I'd like to welcome you to the Thursday, July 11th City Council regular business meeting. And I've asked Councilmember Goldman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Larry.
Thanks. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you, council, very much. And with that, we're moving on to public comments. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we have blank and blank joining us tonight. I'm just going to go ahead and read this anyway, even just as a perfunctory formality. The council will not be accepting online public comments for anyone who's out there viewing this via Zoom. This portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council on agenda items or any other topic the council may have purview or control over. If the comments are of a nature that the council does not have influence or control over, then the mayor may request the speakers suspend their comments. The council may direct staff to follow up on items brought up by the public. Comments are limited to a 3-minute time limit. One other thing I'm going to add to this in the future is our rule that the council may not respond or the mayor may not respond to public comments directly at the time. Okay, with that, we'll close public comments. And moving on, we're going to have a presentation. Chief Cowan, welcome from Northshore Fire District regarding the property tax levy. Welcome, Chief.
All right. Is it
I think you're on.
It didn't.
No, you just talk.
Oh, okay. I can just talk. No way. You don't want me to just keep talking. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for quickly getting me onto the docket tonight. I had a little bit of a conflict with the next meeting, and we have a ballot measure that I wanted to address you all and address anybody that has any questions regarding the lid lift that we're looking at doing, or it's not looking at doing, we are going to be doing on the August 6th ballot. So I want to walk through a few of the things. I'll try and be quick, but I would love if you have any questions or if you want any clarification, I'd love to hear those and be able to address them. So didn't go. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, no, it went too fast. I was too fast. So the first thing I want to give a little bit of backstory. The slide that you have up there is the assessed valuation for both Lake Forest Park and Kenmore. So it's different than what you're probably used to. But as you've seen the growth that we've had, some years have been better than others and all that. We've had good growth, but at the same time, we're constrained, and I think probably most people know this, we're constrained to a 1% increase on our fire levy, just like any other organization. So assessed valuations that are increasing doesn't necessarily mean big increases in our revenues. So, and you can see that in the next slide. This is what our equivalent levy rate has done in that same time period. And when I say equivalent levy rate, the North Shore Fire Department has had a fire benefit charge for over 25 years. And so the equivalent levy rate is a combination of the fire levy and the fire benefit charge together. And that's the predominance of where we get our revenues on an annual basis for operations. And you can see that the equivalent levy rate has dropped. Again, there's been blips. And if I go back, you can see some of these correspond to, the Great Recession. You can see that starting in the late 2000s there, the dip, but at the same time, some of those correspond to our levy rate changes to try and, get through those different phases. But the big question, and the reason why we have to do a lid lift, is this slide here. This is showing not just the equivalent levy rate, but the diversification between the two sources. The blue is the levy rate, the fire tax levy, and the red is the fire benefit charge. And I did it since 2013, because at 2013 it was at $1. Even before the last lid lift that we did, it's hard to even find out exactly when we did it, but it was about 20 years ago. So it was before this, and it fluctuated a little bit between that point and this slide here, but it got really busy with having all those years. So I picked from 2013 on because it demonstrates what we're facing right now. So you can see that the levy rate, the fire levy, has decreased because it's capped at that 1% increase. The fire benefit charge is capped at 60% of the operating budget. So when costs go up, because they cost almost always go up by more than 1%, the fire benefit charge takes the weight of the difference between the revenues that are generated from the fire the fire tax levy. And so if and about in about 80% of our operating budget is buried in personnel, salaries and benefits and costs there. And so when we talk about, CPI, which it just came out today, 3.8%, which is better than I expected. I was thinking it was going to be 4.2, hoping it wasn't going to be over 4.5. But at 3.8%, that's clearly, if it's driving 80% of our budget, and even the other 20% of our budget, which is in supplies and service and other things, those can go up by even more than what CPI is. It drives the costs up higher than what we're able to do with 1%. So that difference there, that fire benefit charge, has to absorb those other hits in our annual budgets. And so as you look at the graph, you can see in 2013, we were at $1 on the levy rate, and the fire benefit charge was around 50 cents. And then as we progress, the fire levy goes down, the fire benefit charge starts to come up, and over these last handful of years, it's become even more so. Some of that's driven by AV. You might recall that a couple of years ago, AV, increased dramatically, which, but CPI was at 10.1%. So it not only did the AV go up, but the costs also went up significantly. And because of the limitations on the fire levy side, we had to absorb more on the fire benefit charge. So it exacerbated a little bit of this trend that we had going on. So, but this trend is not, and I have some summary points here. This trend is not, there it goes. This trend is not new to us. It wasn't a surprise. Over the last almost a decade, this has been on the radar for the Northshore Fire Department before the contract with Shoreline. It had been brought up numerous times to the board and by administrative staff, and it was always kind of punted. It was kicked down the road a little bit further. Oh, it's not burning us today. It's not something that we have to deal with right now. Well, it's now something that we're having to deal with, because the fire benefit charge now is almost up it's almost at the 60% level. So any absorbing any big hits and costs is not going to be viable for us. So that's why we're at this place today. And that's why we need to do the lid lift now. The timing on this is not so great, which I'll talk about in a minute, because we're also talking about an RFA this next year. But I kind of summarized some of these points in case people are online and want to look at them, or if you can share this with the public, and it's probably part of the documents. But we're limited to the 1%, the 60% I already mentioned. Fire departments do this all the time. Some more than others, especially depending on AV and what their needs are. So this is not something that's new, and we haven't done it in over 20 years. And it's not a surprise. So the next slide, I talk about why the timing isn't so great. We are also looking at doing a RFA between Northshore and Shoreline for this next February in 2025. So I would prefer not to be doing this now and then also have a back-to-back, ballot measure, but it is what we're needing to do. We do need a 50% of simple majority on this ballot measure. I already talked about the RFA. One of the things that is really important to us in the RFA planning committee is to make sure that we have geographical representation. That was big. It's big with the North Shore board, it's big with the Shoreline board, it's big with all of you, everybody that we've talked to. We've already drafted up the governance for that to ensure that We're actually going to look at bringing both the 5 elected fire commissioners and the 5 shoreline commissioners and bringing them together to make a board of 10 initially. And then we can start, figuring out how to substitute some of those out or pare it down, because it'd be nice to be a little bit less than 10. So we'll see how that goes. But I just want to assure you all that that's really important, is that geographical. That was one of the most critical pieces of pushing for the RFA. The RFA will get us some of those efficiencies. It'll get us some of those things that those last 5-10%, but it'll also ensure that there's good representation from Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, and Shoreline equally in the whole operation of the department, because right now it's a little bit limited, from the North Shore side. I wanted to make sure that I put this out there because we are really looking for public input. Our meetings are on the 3rd Monday of each month. Our next one is next Monday. It flip-flops between Kenmore and Shoreline at 5 o'clock. Because we were integrated already before this plan. It's going really easy. There's not much to do, because all the employees all the North Shore employees became Shoreline employees, and it's on the same contract, same bargaining unit, and so forth. So it's been really pretty easy. But we are looking for public input. We want to make sure that we get that word out there. I also want to make sure, and going back to the lid lift, I want to assure everybody that this is not a money grab. When I talk about the diversification between the fire benefit charge and the levy rate, aside from the RFA and all that, we're not looking, and the analogy I use is that we're slicing up a pie, and we're not trying to make the pie bigger. We're just trying to make sure that we get a different slice and buy us some time, with the lid lift. With the and I haven't run the numbers because I just got it today with the 3.8%, but we may not need to increase the revenues much at all, or very minimally. So this is not about getting more money. And I know the language, it's kind of difficult because it says 18 cents increase, and it doesn't show that we're going to be decreasing the fire benefit charge. But that graph that you had there, that I showed you, this graph here, once we do this, the blue and the red will flip-flop again, and it'll buy us time. We're not looking to increase the revenues necessarily. There might be a little bit, depending on what assessed values do. We're just trying to make it, proportionate and diversified again. So I'm going to forward to, oops, wrong way, sorry. It's the bigger button. We'll see what assessed values do over the next couple of months, and that will drive, really what the budget looks like for 2025 and beyond. Going back to the RFA and what happens in 2025, again, there should be some efficiencies. We actually are looking at being able to drop the rate as it stands now. It's a very gross, look at it right now, but as it stands now, it'll actually drop the rate for everybody, and less than what it is now. One of the problems that we've had is that the Northshore Fire Department has had a very lean budget and very low equivalent levy rates. And so we had to catch up this last year, which was one of the big reasons why we had a big, jump up this year. We had to catch up on some of our capital projects that had been pushed too far down the road, and we inherited some problems. And that's one of the reasons why it's a little bit of a roller coaster, and why you saw that graph that there was some big increases and decreases in what we were doing. So I wanted to share so if you want some more information, you can go to the Shoreline website, and on the website we actually have separate sections, one for the lid lift and one for the RFA. And we're trying to put FAQs and supporting documents and so forth there. So if there's any questions by any of you or any of the public, you can go there, or you can also put up the King County Elections website that has the explanatory statement for the lid lift, some of the information on the ballot measure. There's a pro statement for the lid lift. There was not a con statement. I looked for committees to give both, and nobody was interested in the con side. So if you have any questions, you can go there. Please call me, email me. I love being able to be here and being able to answer any questions live, but I know that that's just not the reality for many of us. So I'd be happy to take any questions that you have now. And here's my information for anybody that doesn't have it already.
Thank you very much, Chief. Colleagues, questions for Chief Collin? Yes, Councilmember Riddle.
So Chief, what would you see as kind of the ideal and ratio for the levy versus the benefit charge? Do you kind of have like a target in mind that would make you
Right.
feel comfortable with where we end up?
That's a great question because we debated what to do because we are resetting the levy rate. We could push it all the way up to $1. Legally, we could push it up to $1 and decrease the, well, Ellen and we could actually decrease the fire benefit charge even further
Mhm.
and reset almost back to what it, what was, we're at the equivalent of $1.13 right now. So, I mean, apples to apples in gross terminology, you could push it up to $1 and get 13 cents on the fire benefit charge. But that doesn't make sense because the fire benefit charge is actually, in my opinion, a very good way of getting revenues because it assesses a fee commensurate with the risk of that structure.
Got it.
And so I actually like the fire benefit charge more. And we're just trying to buy a little bit of time because we're hoping that everybody supports the RFA next year, which will reset things all over again. That's why the timing on this isn't great because we're doing this now just for basically to get us hopefully to an RFA and we're resetting everything again anyway. So we talked about what we wanted to set the levy rate at. And there was talk about 80, 90 cents, higher. I'm like, no, let's keep it at a lower level, and we reset it enough so that it buys us even at 70 cents, which is what we're resetting to. That'll buy us many, many years, more than likely. But we're really looking just to hopefully next year and being able to reset again. So we try to keep it at a smaller level. But I like it being somewhere in that neighborhood. We have to have enough capacity so we can weather some of the assessed valuations and cost increases, but I really like having the fire benefit charge as high as we can get it with still having some of that capacity. So that's not a very good answer to, I like it being somewhat balanced. I don't like it being completely out of balance.
Thanks, Chief.
Colleagues, further questions for Chief Collin? Deputy Mayor Bodie.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. We're familiar with the 1% cap.
I'm sure you are.
And the
I think most
challenges.
everybody are.
We have not raised our levy rates in over 20 years also, and we have trouble finding all that information back in time as well. What is your current levy rate and what's the new proposal? Could you just share that with us, please?
The levy rate right now, the equivalent levy rate
Yeah.
is $1.13 total. About 52 cents on the levy.
Oh,
And
yeah,
would
I'm
that
asking
be
for the actual levy rate.
that right now, the
Yes,
actual
right
levy
now,
would be
yeah.
pushing that up to 70 cents. And the
where's
fire
now?
benefit charge would get pushed down.
Yeah, I do understand that, but I was just looking for the actual numbers, like
Oh.
what's your levy rate, right? I'm just curious
So-
because we're grappling with the very same issues.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Well, I believe, I'm going to say I believe,
that's fine.
not shall, but hope, should. We should be able to keep the equivalent levy rate now is around $1.13. I'm hoping that it stays right around $1.13 or even less.
I
with-
understand that.
with
I'm
the-
asking you a different question, please,
Okay.
with respect. Ignore the fire benefit charge. I understand that
Okay.
you're keeping the revenue, total revenue equivalent.
Right.
But just in the math department, what is your current levy rate and what's the lifted levy rate? Do you
So-
have that information?
Are you talking about
Just
talking
the
about the fire
levy.
levy?
Just the fire levy,
Okay.
correct?
Maybe I'm being slow. I'm sorry. We're at 52 cents right now.
Okay,
We're going to push it to 70 cents.
okay, thank you. That was exactly
Okay.
what I was looking for.
That-
Thank you.
that-
I'm sorry if I was unclear.
No, I'm sorry that I'm slow.
We're
So-
just because we're grappling with similar issues. I don't want to say, I completely get what you're saying, which is you're collecting about the same amount of
Yeah.
revenue and it's a balance. For us, that wouldn't be true. So I was curious what your numbers were.
Yeah. I mean, if we were really being risky, we could not go to 70, we could go to maybe 60.
Uh-huh.
But that doesn't buy us a lot of years. We could,
Right.
there's no way we could do 20 years
Right.
with that.
Yes.
But 70 was a kind of a compromise of like, we're not going to $1. We're just going to go up some, but in
I
case.
understand
Yeah,
those are judgment calls
Yeah.
that you have to make.
So-
Thank you very much.
No problem. I'm sorry, I was slow.
No.
Colleagues, Councilmember Good.
Good.
I did say good.
You said, okay, sorry. Will this affect bargaining at all? The upcoming bargaining?
Are you talking about CBA negotiations, like for the contracts and all that? No, this won't affect that at all. We're actually in negotiations right now. Our current contracts run out at the end of this year. But the CPI will affect it, how we negotiate salaries and benefits. If we didn't pass the lid lift, it could affect it if we were talking about levels of service and I had to lay off firefighters or something like that. So, I mean, it could, I guess the answer is it could if we were if it doesn't pass, if we don't get the RFA or things like that, and we have to start cutting services, we don't have much room except for people and levels of service. So it could affect it that way.
But you think that the RFA will lower costs for everybody?
Oh, the RFA. So the RFA, I believe will lower the cost for because there's still some redundancy. It depends on some assumptions about reserves. And like right now, we're both North Shore and Shoreline are holding some reserves because of different liabilities. Coming together, I think that we could probably lower some of the overall reserves. And there are some efficiencies. There's actually money that can be saved again from redundancies and so forth. So I do believe that my estimate is that very, very gross, very, very rough, because I don't know, what the assessed values are and all that, but we've estimated that it'll probably be down around $1.10, but could be as low as $1.05 from the current $1.13 so it could be just a couple of pennies, less, but it could be more significant depending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
I'll be
Councilmember
back in front of you guys talking about the RFA too, more than likely. So,
Vice Chair Furutani. Can you hear us okay? You're
Yes,
there.
thank you so much. And thank you, Chief Cowan, for the presentation. Just going back to Deputy Mayor Bodie's point, you said that this levy lid lift was in fact revenue neutral for you?
I'm hoping that it is. I think it's roughly, we're looking at slicing the pie up differently, but not increasing the size of the pie. But I don't know that. I can't guarantee that until we have the assessed valuations that won't come out for another, couple of months, and I can go through a full budget process. But this is not we don't need a ton more money or anything like that. This is just trying to diversify the revenue streams.
So to bring the home point, then the average homeowner then should not see a hit on their property tax bill.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Councilmember Golden.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for your presentation. I also just want to kind of clarify kind of the process. So the vote that Lake Forest Park and Kenmore residents will have next month will be to increase the levy from 52 to 70. So an increase of 18 cents per 1,000.
Correct.
And if that vote passes, then it's your intention to have a corresponding roughly 18-cent decrease in the benefit charge.
Correct.
And if the vote does not pass, then the fire benefit charge would stay where it is.
I would actually push it all the way to the 60% because we will be in a situation where I won't have enough out of our normal operating revenues to cover the bills for next year. I will push that all the way up to 60%. It's at 58 point something right now. So I have a little bit of wiggle room there. That would get us a little bit of revenue, and with assessed values, that would give us a little bit of revenue. And I'll get my 1% on the other side with the fire levy. That probably will not cover our operating costs. So we would have to pull from reserves to balance, for next year. And then it gets a lot worse after that.
Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, it seems reasonable. I think if I could offer a suggestion, and this might be a limitation of how these levies have to be put into the ballot.
Yeah.
It's not clear to me, if I just read the explanatory statement, it's not clear that if the levy goes up, the benefit charge will come down by a roughly corresponding amount.
That is correct. And it's unfortunate. I completely agree that I wish that we could be more clear with the language, but that website that I pointed on that second to last slide there has not only the explanatory statement and some of the things that are required for the vote, but also has some of that clarifying language, because King County came back and asked me the same exact question, essentially, of what was that impact, and they put that language in there to make it clear. I think it's captured in the pro statement a little bit, and it's certainly captured in the FAQs on our website.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Colleagues, any other
I could
questions for
write
Chief?
it differently.
Chief Cowan? Questions? Thank you very much, Chief. I just would note too that for the edification of the public, if I recall correctly, if you have a sprinkler system, you have a substantive discount on your fire benefit charge.
That's correct. And if you are in dire straits or a senior, you also can get some discounts as well.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much for joining us.
I would encourage anybody in the public or anything to please, I just want to get the information out there and have accurate information and data and so forth, so that everybody can make an informed decision. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll add them to our website as I get more information on the FAQ page. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Okay, council, we are on to the consent calendar. I entertain a motion for adoption of the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. We should start using unanimous consent. I apologize, council. I'll be more expeditious in the future. We're moving on to final confirmation. Director Hoffman is joining us here. This is a really important program we're working on here. Confirmation of the members and alternates to the Climate Policy Advisory Team. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mark Hoffman, Community Development Director. First, with a little background, through partial funding of the Climate Commitment Act and the support of the legislature and the Department of Commerce, the city received a $500,000 grant to fulfill a mandate to have a climate element. The deadline for those already underway with their periodic update is not until 2029. In the first round of funding, we were successful. So our grant goes through June of next year. We did an RFQ. We're going to do 4 interviews next week for a consultant to perform the scope of work, a standalone climate element, a greenhouse gas sub-element, and a resiliency sub-element. With that consultant and staff, where the council formed a climate policy advisory team. We then went to existing boards and commissions and solicited interests, up to 3 members of the Planning Commission, 3 members of the Climate Action Committee, and 1 member of the Tree Board. And we have a list and nominations from the mayor, and we're asking for confirmation tonight. Those members are Yanni Kaji from the Planning Commission, David Coveno and Lois Lee from the Commission. From the Climate Action Committee, Mimi Bertram, Sheriff Phillips, Anna Udaloy, and from the Tree Board, Victoria Kutaz. The nominations include 2 alternates, Jessica Cote from the Climate Action Committee and Stacy Spain from the Tree Board. All of those nominees are in existing bodies, very busy. We had a Tree Board meeting last night, Planning Commission Tuesday, open house next Tuesday, Climate Action Committee meeting. And so we didn't ask them to come. They're already vetted and they're very busy, but they're all very eager to serve in this additional capacity. And we're asking for confirmation of those nominees tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Colleagues, questions for Director Hoffman? Councilmember Riddle.
I noticed that we do have 2 more positions, kind of community member at large positions that we're not filling tonight, but we want to move forward with these 2 so they can get started. Do you have nominations or for those?
We do
2
not
other
at this
positions?
time.
Okay.
Yeah, after I started going to the boards and commissions, I had sent an email that if anyone knew of interested parties, please have them contact the mayor, and I'm not aware that any have. So we would like to finish the RFQ, bring back a recommendation for that and start to prepare with this team. But staff's open and the mayor's open to any ideas or nominees or interested parties. Our hope is that they get filled at some point before we get into the meat of the work to provide that perspective.
Fantastic. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Vice Chair Furtani, apologies, Tracy.
Thank you. And thank you, Director Hoffman, for putting forth those names. I've had the pleasure of meeting all of them. And again, our community comes through every time. These people are already working on these volunteer boards. And what did we reward them with? More work. And they said, give me more. So I can't say enough for the volunteer spirit of these folks. I am very much in favor of approving all these names. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice Chair. Yeah, colleagues, any other questions for Director Hoffman or? Okay, thank you. Well, I would certainly entertain a motion for, yeah, Vice Chair Furtani, would you like to make a motion for adoption?
I would gladly make the motion to adopt, well, actually to confirm, give final confirmation to these this group of 7 very talented individuals to round out our climate policy advisory team.
I hear a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Thank you, council, and many thanks to our hardworking volunteers. This is really important work, and we're so pleased that they're willing to step up once again, I should say. And with that, we're moving on to Director Vaughn. Ordinance 24-1294, amending the 2023-2024 budget. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So this evening is the 3rd time I've brought this forward. And at this point, it probably is old news on everything that we're going through on the budget amendment. So just to briefly walk through it, a lot of what we have in this current proposed budget amendment are in the general fund are pass-through items. Some of which are for police services from outside agencies that are we're being reimbursed for. Grants, body-worn cameras, Department of Commerce, and community development grants. So a lot of it is pass-through items. The sewer and surface water utility tax, that becomes revenue into the general fund and is in revenue and expenditures in both of those enterprise funds. And we also have some passport revenue, which there's some tied expenditures to that for increasing an additional part-time employee position. And some interest revenue that was amended up, and that touches on quite a few funds. Then walking down into the expenditure side on the general fund, that's where you're going to start to see some of the, like I mentioned, the pass-throughs for the grants. That's the expenditure side. And there are a handful of travel, professional services, training, staff volunteer and recognitions for retirements and longevity for how long our staff has been here that our human resources director has taken on. So those need to be just slightly increased. Again, the pass-through for the passport clerk on the expenditure side, and then the pass-through grants. There's a couple others that we've been talking about. It seems like all year long, actually longer than that, for jail expenses that have just continually been exceeding where we had originally estimated them, as they've been trending higher now for quite a few years. The public defender, that item, we had that contract change. So now we're actually seeing the cost. We need to actually amend the cost for that contract change that was effective at the beginning of the year. And then walking through, Sound Transit had produced a refundable deposit for the work that they're doing, and that's a pass-through. In addition, some salary, seasonal salaries that will be in multiple funds. And then the parks maintenance, The tree removal contract, that was approved by council, and now we just need to walk that through to tie it to the actual budget that's being increased, and that is being presented in multiple funds. Also, I didn't mention that the Police Foundation also assisted as the vehicle outfitting for the new police Tahoes. That came in a little higher than estimated, and so they assisted in offsetting that cost. So walking to the street fund, investment interest was increased in addition to tie on to the seasonal salary increases that the city is experiencing, because we are able to hire those seasonals for additional help for the Public Works Department. Then walking down to the Transportation Benefit District Fund, again, with the new revenue of the additional sales tax that was increased, that was proposed and implemented, actually not increased, implemented in addition to the investment interest, those are on the revenue side. Walking down to the contingency fund, budget stabilization fund, again, those two items are just an increase on interest. Strategic Opportunity Fund, there's a couple housekeeping items there. There's interest, and the Recreation and Conservation, that grant, we're just truing that up for the revenue that was actually received, because that was received in this biennium, and so it's more of a housekeeping item. And then we are also transferring in $600,000 in order to support the efforts of the Phase 2 for the lakefront property. And again, as tied to truing up, we have the additional funds, the 600,000 plus on the Recreation and Conservation grant. There was additional funds that were presented to the city that offset to have the additional 600 and then the 270 to match and tie out that 870 that's being presented. And then the interfund loan, and that's just to, again, that's been paid and trued up, but we're just housekeeping item on the actual budget. So then walking down to the ARPA fund. At this point, the ARPA funds need to be fully allocated, and so this is fully allocating what is remaining within that fund. The Capital Improvement Fund, again, is investment interest, and then walking to transferring out the 600,000 in order to support the efforts of the lakefront property through Phase 2. And then walking down to the Transportation Capital Fund, again, investment interest. And then we are expanding on the expenditure side, the Safe Streets Early Action in order to support traffic improvements and some additional studies, 2 additional studies on that to ask for that budget to expand a little bit. So walking down to the Sewer Utility Fund, that again is the utility tax charge, which we budgeted both of those, the sewer and the surface water tax, very conservatively, as this budget was the first year that they had been implemented. And so we are seeing them come in a little higher than that conservative estimate, so it's time to true them up. And then on the expenditure side, again, the seasonal salaries and sewers just paying that allocation of the salaries. So then going to the Surface Water Utility Fund, again, the surface water utility tax, you'll see that on the revenue, and the expenditure that ultimately ends up as revenue into the general fund. And walking down to the salaries, those are seasonal. The seasonal salaries, again, a small portion of the tree removal contract is within the surface water fund, as sometimes that does end up being a place in which we do need to expend that charge. And then a couple true ups of the system maintenance of operations and the addition of increasing from the ARPA of the surface water master plan. So then walking down to the Surface Water Capital Fund, interest, and then there are two projects that are broken out, shown separately from design and construction. So there's 4 line items there. And both of those projects are were not originally budgeted and need to be entered and trued up into our current existing budget. And then in conclusion, the final fund, the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund, that's where we transferred in the police donate, the foundation's donation of the just over $30,000, and then tied it out to the actual police vehicle replacement Tahoe outfitting line item. And so that concludes the overview of my budget amendment, of the city's budget amendment. I guess it's not mine, it's our budget amendment. So at this time, we're looking and requesting adoption of this budget amendment. Are there any questions?
Director Vaughn, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Colleagues, questions for Director Vaughn? Around the dais here, Councilmember Furtani. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, just wanted to commend Director Vaughn on a fine presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Colleagues, going once, Councilmember Riddle.
I will say that I'm getting better at moving fund to fund and then come in and because you're so clear about reminding us where things are coming and going, as I really appreciate that. I think I really understand what you're doing and what this is about, which makes it easy for me to be able to vote on it.
Thank you.
If you want to be part of the cool kids, you can identify the funds by number.
I was gonna add fund numbers on
And,
because I do, I like numbers.
and if you did notice,
See? Yeah.
there are fund numbers
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is an
I like
easy
that.
fix.
I like that a lot.
All
Thank you.
kidding aside, council, any other questions or comments for Director Vaughn? I would entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance 24-1294, amending the 2023-2024 budget.
I'll move that we adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park, Washington, amending the adopted biennial budget of the City of Lake Forest Park for the years 2023-2024, providing for the severability and establishing an effective date, ordinance number 24-1294.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Thank you, Director Vaughn.
Thank you.
And Chair Lebo, appreciate this very much. Phil, we were moving on to Administrator Hill is going to be talking about approval of Resolution 24-1959, authorizing the mayor to execute the Washington State Allocation Agreement governing allocation agreement governing, wow, of opioid settlement funds paid by Kroger and execute the subdivision participation and release form. That's a mouthful. Phil.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This may feel very familiar. You just did this with Johnson & Johnson. No sooner did we get that on the agenda and then we got notice that this one was coming forward. As the mayor stated, this resolution would authorize the mayor to sign or to execute the Washington State Allocation Agreement governing the allocation of opioid settlement funds be paid by Kroger and the subdivision participation and release form for the Kroger settlement. We don't know the exact dollar amount at this point in time because to get to the full amount, we have to have all the cities participate. To date, every city has participated in every one of these. The one thing I can tell you is that the payout on this one is about 11 years. So, and if you remember, they're small enough dollar amounts, it's minuscule. We've had one previous settlement that paid out the full in a lump sum. We've been collecting small amounts, $1,000 at a time, few $1,000s at a time, and just putting in. The only expenditure that we've had out to date were the purchases of Narcan for entire city staff. And that came with training from Lieutenant Lehman before she left, and Lieutenant Adams has continued that. Beyond that, that will be up for consideration of allocation in your upcoming budget process. The chief has indicated we may have one local entity from our city that could be coming and requesting some funds from that. So looking forward to that. And we've been banking this to find something good to spend it on. And so hopefully that's what's coming forward. But that's the future tonight. We're just looking for you to give the mayor authorization to sign these forms. This is not due until the 12th, but your next meeting is on the 6th, 8th of August, getting a little too close there. So we would ask for your approval tonight. You have any questions for me?
Colleagues, questions for Administrator Hill? How many more of these do we have? Phil?
There could be many.
Okay. Just-
Hopefully I don't open my email on Monday and there's another one coming. So,
Colleagues, in the issue of expediency, I would certainly entertain a motion to suspend your three-touch rule and move forward.
I make a motion to suspend our three-touch rule for this execution of agreement due to its consistency with the others that we have agreed to and
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to suspend the three-touch rule in this case. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? I'm sorry, Councilmember.
Just for the record, why we're waiving the three-touch rule. While it's our first touch on the Kroger settlement, we've had several other settlements and it's substantially the same thing. So it's not really our first touch on this issue.
Thank you, Councilmember. Excellent point. All those in favor of suspending the three-touch rule in this case, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. Thank you, Council. I'd entertain a motion to adopt, to approve resolution 24-1959.
I move to adopt resolution 24-1959, authorizing the mayor to execute documents necessary to participate in the Kroger Company opioid settlement agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded 3 times. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. We'll probably have more of those. And with that, are there any items of other business the council would like to discuss? Councilmember Bodie.
Yes, I would like to discuss with the council the possibility of canceling our scheduled meetings for July 22nd, July 25th, and August 22nd, because we have a tremendous amount of staff work going on, both for the comprehensive plan and for the development of the budget. So it will give our staff a certain break. And we also don't have a huge number of agenda items waiting in the wings. So I think the council can afford to give itself a little break here, as well as give the staff a little more breathing room. So in order to do this, we would have to vote, because those are official meeting dates. I guess if we wanted to, if something came up, we could figure out what to do in that case and call for a special meeting. But for right now, given what we see coming in and for the council and what we see coming in for staff, it makes sense to cancel these meetings at this time. Any discussion?
Thanks. Broke there, excuse me. Any comments, questions? Deputy Mayor Bodie. Okay,
So could I then make a motion to cancel the currently scheduled council meetings for July 22nd, July 25th, and August 22nd, 2024.
do I hear a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to cancel, I believe, let's see, the regularly scheduled meetings for the 7th of July, the 20, all right, so that would be 22nd, excuse me.
25th.
That's the committee of the whole, the 25th regular business meeting and the regular business meeting for August 27th. Is there a second?
22nd.
Oh, 22nd, sorry, I can't
Yeah,
read my own writing.
sorry.
Apologies. I was gonna get my calendar up here and I can't. Outlook's locked up. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you, council.
Thank you, council.
Appreciate that. Moving on from other business, council committee reports.
Can I do one more other business?
You bet.
Yes. In light of the chief's presentation this evening, while the city itself cannot take a position on this because we haven't gone through the process, it is still an option for individual council members in their own to be able to take a position. So if you're interested in doing that and supporting that on your own, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you, council member. Any other business? Okay, hearing none. Council committee reports. Anyone? Shirley Bell?
So I joined the planning commission meeting on Tuesday, July 9th. It was a really well-attended meeting, and there were some very nice words that were expressed for Deputy Mayor Bodie, who is leaving the planning commission for recognition of all the work that she's done. It was a great discussion. They reviewed the draft comprehensive plan, and there is an open house next Tuesday on July 16th, 4 to 7 p.m. and the Third Place Commons. And so they will have boards up that represent the major areas of the comprehensive plan, and the consultants will be there, as well as planning commission members, and encourage council members to attend as well. And that's Third Place Commons, July 16, Tuesday, 4 to 7 p.m.
Thank you, council member. And
Could I please add, also, they're going to have a public hearing August 13th. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's great. Thank you.
on point, I'd like to express my thanks to Deputy Mayor Bodie for her hard work with the planning commission. She did an outstanding job in being council liaison for many years through some very, very challenging topics. And we do all appreciate your service there, Lori.
We have awesome volunteers, so it's been fun.
Other council member reports. Councilmember Goldman.
Yes, the tree board met last night, and I'll just want to highlight two of the topics they talked about. The first deals with the tree list, that the city maintains a list of recommended or prohibited trees. The tree board would like to work with our urban forestry planner, Drew, to update the list. In particular, there's some trees that King County lists as weeds of concern, so taking those off of our approved list. And then also looking at other trees, for instance, trees that might not be native to us, but they're native to, let's say, Oregon. But in light of climate change, should they be added to the recommended list? We might need to take minor action because I think our tree replanting ordinances talk about a specifically dated tree list, and just amending that in some way to basically say the tree list as amended by staff, just so that it's up to date. The second topic dealt with tree equity. There's a website, treeequityscore.org. You can just Google for tree equity score, and it's nationwide, and it'll highlight by census block what the tree canopy of a neighborhood looks like, and also benchmarking it with population, demographics, and the like. Lake Forest Park scores very highly overall, but there are two neighborhoods that are a bit lower. One of them is the northwest corner, north and west of about 195th and 35th. The other is the southeast corner, south of 165th, east of Bothell Way. And those are areas the tree board has highlighted in the past about when we passed our right-of-way tree ordinance. They're in the target area. If trees can't be replanted in the project area, they're the second choice. But also they highlighted that urban forest planner Drew highlighted that it's easier to get grant money. If you can show that we have tree projects that are targeting areas with lower equity scores, it becomes much more favorable, much easier to get grant money. And so that's something that we can consider as a city. So that's the tree board.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Could I ask a follow-up question? I happened to do the Secret Gardens tour, and there were so many beautiful dogwood trees. So are dogwood trees allowed? Sorry to ask this question, but it just popped into my mind when I did the Secret Gardens tour.
I could not tell you.
Okay.
Dogwood, there is a native dogwood,
Oh,
and there are hybrids to make them more resilient. The native
Yeah.
dogwoods tend to be more susceptible to
I think they
disease.
were in bloom, so they were, several gardens had beautiful, expansive dogwoods, so I was curious, sorry. It's a little off topic, but thank you for the answer.
Thank you, everyone. Other council member reports.
Yep.
Oh, Councilmember Furtoni, thank you, Vice Chair Furtoni.
Thank you. The Climate Action Committee met a couple of Tuesdays ago. And one of the things that's coming up is on July 21st, they'll be at the farmers market to discuss the climate action plan. Also, to publicize the climate action plan, there's a press release in the works, as well as an update of our website to include all those wonderful resources that are links that people might want to look through. And then finally, there's some planning going on for October 26th, which is a ways in the future, for the Third Place Commons climate event. And we're hoping that we'll be able to team up with all the different boards that are in the city that are working on climate parts. So the Planning Commission, the Tree Board, Parks and Recreation, and so forth. And hopefully we'll be able to actually see how this thread runs through all of our work.
Thank you, Vice Chair Furtoni. Any other? Yes, please.
I attended Sound Cities Policy Issues Committee, and it was quite an interesting agenda. First of all, King County Solid Waste made a presentation. I kind of think of Philippa when I hear the word solid waste, so we miss Councilmember Cassover. They're seeing declining materials for disposal and increased diversion. They have a goal of driving 70% diversion of our solid waste. But the net result is, because of their old formula, raising revenues mostly by tonnage of what's disposed. Though they have now added a base rate charge to transition. The fact is they're going to be looking at 10% rate increases. And the way I understood it, it was like 10% for the next several years, like up to like 2029 or so. So there was a lot of question about that, and whether they had looked for any cost savings, and King County's representative said that they had, but hadn't found much. There then was a chart that they displayed showing the rates that different cities pay, and we were towards the high end of the rate for a 32-gallon container, which was surprising to me, but North Bend was the highest, so I didn't feel too bad. Some cities said that they had been looking at that, and also thinking about only going to garbage pickup every other week. And apparently, like, I forget whether it was Renton or Redmond already does that, so just flag this issue, kind of again channeling Councilmember Cassover.
Yeah.
They're also going to increase significantly the construction and demolition disposal fees. We have been charging, we haven't raised our rates in 20 years, and it's like $4 a ton or something like that. And we're going to raise it to $13 a ton, which is like what Seattle charges, but Portland charges $30 a ton. So this is like an opportunity. It does seem still pretty cheap to me. So I just will flag that it seems to me that might be a place where they could increase their revenues. There was also a presentation from a sobering presentation from Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility about the consequences of the kinds of nuclear warheads that are available. If Kitsap County were a nation, it would have the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world. Because of the Bangor Trident military base, they provide it basically. But there are both huge immediate impacts of the kinds of nuclear warheads that we have these days, as well as ice age implications from the smoke and everything going into the atmosphere. So even if like India and Pakistan had a nuclear war, it would affect the climate and the health of the planet as a whole. So they have a campaign that they're starting called Back from the Brink. And they're trying to get cities to adopt a resolution supporting their the disarmament approach. There, of course, there's some concern, like will we disarm and other people won't and so forth. But the point is to try to bring publicity to the fact that according to them, we've been avoiding the severe consequences as a matter of luck. Rather than a matter of purpose. So Spokane and Olympia have adopted such resolution supporting back from the brink. If the council is interested, let me know and we can get a presentation. It was pretty sobering, and it reminded me that when I was a young girl, we talked a lot about nuclear war, and it's worse. The risks are worse now, but we don't talk about it very much. So there is also a statement on housing and services for asylees, that is asylum seekers. Asylees seems like a weird word to me, that Sound Cities is going to be adopting. And a lot of the message is the cities need to know what's going on. We can't be taken by surprise. The federal government should be, and the state should be taking some leadership roles. There is a state office of refugee and immigration services or something like that. I forget what the acronym is, but they really they're probably doing things, but it hasn't gotten out to the cities. So it's a statement that will get distributed to the county, the state, the federal representatives, and that will be adopted shortly. That's it for me.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bodie. Colleagues, any other council member reports? Thank you. Couple things for me. Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Furtani.
And I apologize, I should have probably mentioned this earlier. I also went to the Lake Ballinger Forum, and the news there is that the McAleer Creek culverts under I-5, that project has been postponed at least until April 2025 because it hasn't been funded. And so that's the earliest that the funding discussion will take place. So if we were expecting any kind of major impacts, it's been put off for a while.
Thank you for the update. Appreciate that.
Just
Yes.
a quick update from Healthier Here that the community hub in its sort of smaller initial rollout started on July 1st. So they are working out some of the early kinks, and it will continue to add providers and services as we go along, but it has rolled out and is starting. So it's really nice.
Thank you, council member.
Could I ask Councilmember Furtani a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Councilmember Furtani, way back when I first heard about the culvert project with I-5, there were local citizens who had been involved in the Lake Ballinger Forum who raised the fact that there'd be much increased floodwater potentially or higher flows coming our way as a result of those culvert enlargements. And so there were downstream consequences for us. Is that part of the deliberations, or has that been addressed?
Actually, that's where the delay in the funding works in our favor. It means they're scrapping the whole studies that they had been thinking about doing, which did not go far enough in my view. And so I've been initiating conversations with WashDOT about extending the field of study significantly downstream to include what impacts it would have on us.
Thank you so much. That's a great answer.
Great information. Thank you, everybody. A couple items for me. I was at the unveiling of a new bust of Colonel Bolognese at the Peruvian consulate this evening. It was a very moving ceremony. There were a lot of, I was surprised the number of people there, including the general who's the chief, he's the general who's the chief executive officer of the Joint Base, Louis McCord, as well as some other staff members were there. Number of course, consular officials from Peru, the consul from Spain, consul from Taiwan, consul from Ethiopia, interestingly enough, and a bunch of other folks as well. Not slighting anyone if I've forgotten who it was, but it was a very large group, very, again, touching ceremony. And that bust will actually be, there was lots of references to the bust of Admiral Grau, excuse me, started to say general again, Admiral Grau in Animal Acres. There was mention of that several times during the ceremony. This bus is going to be housed at at the joint base, and that's why the general was there. The chief of the Seattle Fire Department and his number 2 were there. Some of you may have met him at various community events involving RCR and some other entities as well. Really interesting and fun. And the consul and I have pledged to get together again over lunch sometime in the very near future. And we were surprised to note that we do have a consul for the country of Austria within our boundaries, which I totally ignorant. I apologize to our friends from Austria. I did not know that. Became aware of that. And unfortunately, the consul could not attend tonight.
Where is that?
I believe it's a private home and it's only up by appointment, but we'll make sure that we reach out to her and establish communications.
It's in the Sheridan Beach neighborhood.
As well, okay.
Or maybe-
A couple of things. Thank you, Chief, for the reminder. I had it actually on my list. National Night Out is the August 6th, the Tuesday. Very much looking forward to that. And Vice Chair Furtani, I'm going to have to extend my apologies to the CAC because that's the night that I was asked to come and speak. And I've already committed to going to the National Night Out events. So we'll get that rescheduled as soon as possible. But I just wanted to give you a heads up on point there. The safety fair is coming up on Saturday from 10 to 2. Always a fun event. I know that the chief and Deputy Mayor Bodie are going to be in the dunk tank.
No.
Oh, that's you and me, Chief. Is that right?
That's
Okay, yeah.
I know when to say no.
The good news is that it's going to be in the 80s, and previously it's been in the 60s or lower, right, Chief? And it's been like dry suit weather. So it's always a fun event, and the chief staff works so hard on this for many, many months. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. Last year was no exception, and so there'll be a bicycle rodeo for the kids, helmets, life jackets, safety packages. Am I forgetting anything, Mike? Yeah, should be really fun. I hope you all can attend. It's really exciting, and many thanks to some of our community partners that have supported this in the past too. So
Yeah, thank you, Chief, and to you and your staff for doing that every year. It's such a cool event.
it really is. King County Marine Patrol will be there. Our friends from the Coast Guard Auxiliary. They'll have their little robotic remote control fireboat or something that they drive, right? Let's see, a couple other things. As you may know, the blackberries are being removed up at Horizon View Park. That's successful. There have been a couple of things going on up there for the education of the community. These kind of blackberries are very invasive and they harm the trees. And so unfortunately, they need to be removed. And thanks to Public Works for spearheading that. I'm sorry, there have been a few challenges in that regard. Not to end on a negative note, but traffic cameras, including the new installation, continue to climb, which I'm very surprised about. I would have hoped that the numbers would start dropping. I think when they actually go live with actual citations beginning Monday, I believe, Phil.
No, we're still working. I was talking to the city attorney
Oh,
before
okay.
this meeting. We're still working on the notice of a violation of infractions,
Okay,
and that still has to be tested by AOC. It's
okay. Just for,
Administrative Office of the Courts for those.
yeah, the Office of Courts, there are many moving parts to this, pun intended, and it's an incredibly complicated process. So there are bound to have been hiccups. So I guess there's a little respite for the people that continue to exhibit bad behavior in that area. I know it was all of our fervent hopes that with the new camera authority and those being turned on, that people would slow down. We'll see how it goes when the actual citations, warnings have been issued for a period of time already, 30 days, I think already.
So if I could add, I was doing a little research on this today and looking at Kenmore because they've just instituted some school zone cameras and have current data. They did a 2-month warning period. In the second month of warning, they saw a 50% reduction. So this will give us a little bit more data. And then when the citations went live, they saw another 50% drop. And so unfortunately, the data we have on our current cameras doesn't go back to inception. It's from 2014 forward. So you can see trends, but you can't see where they started and then, you know, kind of where they plateaued. So we'll be watching that data, but I think right now, it's hard to say. These are a totally different animal than a school zone. So we'll stay tuned.
I'd say the only thing slow about this is the process.
Well, and I will.
Hopefully that changes.
I will say a couple more quick comments. Surprisingly, the most amount of incidents are occurring over the weekends. I'm not sure, smarter people than me can probably tell me why, but I'm not sure why that is. But I will say that I've had three citizens neighbors who live along that route, including someone today, told me that they are observing people driving much slower than they were before. And I think you mentioned this to me, Deputy Mayor Bodie, that people are not driving as aggressively in that corridor as they used to. And I've heard that from a couple other people as well. So that the positive impacts may take a little bit of time. And so I thank you all for the support of that program, and we'll see what happens. And the final reminder about that program is the net revenues from that program go right back into pedestrian and multimodal safety and complete streets as per our CW. So I will say it again, and I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. Those people who are saying this is a money grab. Well, if people want to speed through our city, they can pay for our sidewalks, crosswalks, and making it safer for all of our community. And with that, Mr. Hill, anything you want to add to the administrator's report?
Thanks. I just have one thing to add. So you remember through our federal delegation, Congresswoman Jayapal, we applied for $5 million for the Lakefront Park. We received from her office today that the federal committee that oversees that has cut that to $2.5 million. And that is the amount that'll be going forward to the House, the Senate, and then for the president's signature. So we're already half of what we asked for, and hopefully it doesn't go any lower as it goes through and actually gets signed. So we'll go from there. And that's
Could
all.
I clarify that that's for the community center?
It was for the community center, the cabin at the front that we would put
Right.
PD in, and there were some other improvements that
But
were
the
tied to it.
The orientation is for community space, not the park per se. I just wanted to clarify that because that was part of the dance of this one.
Yeah, these are CDBG funds, community development block grant funds, and so they couldn't be used for the park.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Any colleagues, any questions for, yes, Councilmember Reports.
I'm just want to highlight the soccer match that was noted in the report and lost 2-1. So it was a close game. So I'm curious if they're going to get any training in soccer going forward. Looks like they were just wumped by the 6-12-year-olds out there. So I'm glad that you're out there and the officers are out there in the community engaging in random acts of soccer.
That's great. With that, we have an executive session pursuant to potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.3.110.Prinz I. We are not anticipating any action after.
No action, but we need 20 minutes.
We need 20 minutes. Okay, so we will adjourn the regular city council session for now, and then we'll move to executive session. Is it okay to stay here, Phil, or? I'd like to call the City of Lake Forest Park City Council meeting for Thursday, July 11th back to order, and we are adjourned. Always